All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So closed captioning is available should anybody would like to use that as an access point for today. And welcome to Empowering Readers, Tools and Strategies to Support Reading Success. And it's our session 3 of our 3-part series. We have put the home-based document on in the chat, so feel free to access that to see all of the resources that we'll be sharing today. And let's see. Okay, so our training today is the last part of our series, and it's brought to you by Open Access, Placer County Office of Education, and San Jose City Unified School District. I want to introduce again some of the wonderful presenters and contributors to our 3-part series. We have a few of us here today, and the rest I think you guys have seen over the series. Amanda Killian is the Educational Technology Specialist. Tracy Shaw Green is our AACAT specialist at Placer County Office of Education. And Carrie Sherson is also our AACAT specialist with PCOE, and she helped contribute to this presentation as well. And we also have Jessica Rosenberg. She's an AT specialist with San Jose City Unified School District. And Emily Desjardins and myself, Mimi Zimlik, we are the UDL AT content lead with Open Access. So a little bit about open access for those that who are unfamiliar with us. At Open Access, we believe that students can achieve meaningful access to high quality curriculum, instruction, and active participation in learning when UDL principles are applied across all environments. So by nurturing learner agency, we really want to empower every student to take ownership of their learning and to grow as purposeful and reflective, resourceful and authentic, and strategic and action-oriented individuals. And we do this in hope by implementing the principles of UDL for learning across all environments. We incorporate digital tools and assistive technology into design of instruction and measurement of learning. And we provide access to augmentative alternative communication strategies and support and a commitment to building kind of communication competencies for students with complex communication needs. And our approach is through providing 3 tiers of supports to schools, districts, county office, and SELPAs throughout the state of California. And that's who we all are about. If you want to find out more information, we have our website linked on our home-based document. So some of our partners that we work with is Antelope Valley SELPA, North Inland SELPA, Humboldt County Office of Education, and the Placer County Office of Education. And our project is funded by the California Department of Education and the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. So here at Open Access, we really want to try to commit to UDL principles and making our presentation as accessible as possible. Some of the strategies that we will use today are simple backgrounds with high contrast text. We try to provide digital and print materials wherever possible. And you can access our slide deck using the tiny URL or QR code. We provide alt text for all our images. And we'll try to share examples and non-examples of topics and concept. And throughout our presentation, we really provide options for interaction with you guys and to hear your feedback and allow for individual reflection, small group discussion, as well as host group discussion. Now, as we kick off today, here's what we're aiming for this final session. We're going to explore how the strand of the Scarborough's reading rope work together to build skilled reading. We'll dig into the key areas of language comprehension and look at the tools and strategies to support each of these areas. And then we'll connect these ideas back to that big foundation, big 5 of foundation of reading that we introduced way in session 1, and take a few minutes to kind of reflect on our own learning across the series and to think about how we can bring what we've learned back into our classroom. For our session path, our last session path, we're going to start with an overview of reading comprehension that we introduced in session 2. Tracy's just going to give a quick overview for those that may be new to the idea of reading comprehension. And then she'll walk us through background knowledge, vocabulary, and language structure. And then I'm going to jump in and share about verbal reasoning and literacy knowledge. And we will end with reflection and a wrap up of our 3-part series. Now, so for those of you that have joined us for all three series, we're going to start with an inclusive welcome, right? And so that's just before we jump into content. We want to just do a practice that's made famous by the Castle Social and Emotional Learning Framework. And it's about just creating a space where everyone feels seen, valued, and connect right before we kind of jump into the work that we want to do. So I want you guys to take a moment and think if your current mood were a book title, what would it be? Maybe you're feeling like the power of now, really grounded and focused and ready to dive in. Or are you becoming kind of in a season of growth? Perhaps today you're kind of braving the wilderness, courageous and bold and ready to take on your challenge. Or you're the Joy Luck Club, being joyful and connected. There's really no right answer, so please play with it. Let's have a little fun with it, and you can drop your book title mood in the chat or share a new one. Oh, A Wrinkle in Time. Love that, Stephanie. Wonderful.
I kind of like the misadventures of Frog and Toad. I feel like I'm one of either the frog or the toad.
Oh, Stephanie came with a second one. I love it. Frog and Toad. Wonderful.
Nice.
Well, if you guys come up with one and you let your mood settle and it speaks to you, feel free to drop it in the chat. So I'm actually gonna turn it over to Tracy, and she's gonna start us off with some reading comprehension.
We have this great quote here as we introduce the topic of reading comprehension. So looking at reading comprehension, it's not a skill you teach, it's a condition you create. And that is a powerful reminder that comprehension is the result of many interrelated factors, not a single isolated skill that can be taught in a vacuum. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we go to the next slide. But I do want to just say on a side note that I'm not a teacher. I'm a speech language pathologist, but I currently am an AT and AAC specialist. So reading is so interesting to me because it is language based. And specifically for this content, we're looking at receptive language. So reading is a receptive language skill. So receptive language, which is the ability to understand language, is a foundational component of reading, as both involve comprehending words and their meaning. Skills like understanding vocabulary, sentence structure or syntax, and complex concepts are crucial for reading comprehension. So poor receptive language can make it difficult to understand what is being read, especially as text becomes more complex and require comprehension of figurative language. So let's go on to the reading rope. So this is Scarborough's reading rope, and it's a widely used model that illustrates the complex and interwoven skills required for proficient reading. It visually represents how different strands of language and word recognition come together to support skilled reading. So at the top, there are two major components, but the top is the language comprehension, which I thought was interesting that they labeled it language comprehension and not reading comprehension. It is more abstract at the top and requires deep thinking, which may be difficult for some students. So these strands become increasingly strategic and automatic over time. So we have background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. And then we already talked about the word recognition strands at the bottom. So as these strands are woven together and strengthened through instruction and practice, they lead to skilled reading. So the fluent execution and coordination of word recognition and text comprehension. So we're going to revisit the rope in a little bit. So the metaphor of a rope emphasizing that reading is not a single skill, multiple skills, but a combination of many interdependent skills that must be developed together. Very important. The first thing we're going to look at is background knowledge, which I think is is so important when we're starting a new lesson, or new book, a new piece of literature. We want to make sure we're setting the scene. We're laying the foundation and activating background knowledge, or we may need to build background knowledge. So students may have background knowledge based on their experiences, but many times we need to build knowledge prior to expecting reading comprehension. So the more you know about a topic, the easier it is to read a text. Easier to read it, easier to understand it, and retain the information. So previous studies have shown that background knowledge plays an enormous role in reading comprehension. So don't overlook it. And it's fun. So you have the definition is the collective information, experiences, and understanding an individual has about a topic or subject. The components include vocabulary, facts, cultural background, which is key, personal experiences, and conceptual understanding. Then we have acquisition, so built over a lifetime through formal education. Reading is so important. We acquire this background, more and more background knowledge. The more we experience life, the more we read, the conversations that we have, and then those direct experiences like travel and hands-on activities. And I think we can start teaching background knowledge. We should be teaching background knowledge activities as early as preschool. So why is it important? Why is reading comprehension important? It provides the context to be understood, to understand new text, allowing readers to move beyond decoding words to comprehending meaning. So a deeper understanding enables readers to make connections to new information, use higher order thinking skills, and build a mental model of a text. That is a huge piece, that mental model, those images, those pictures. Making connections helps in making inferences, understanding metaphors and idioms, and relating new material to personal life or other texts. Learning and memory creates a mental framework or a schema to organize new information, which improves learning and long-term retention. So we've sold it. Background knowledge is important. So how do we build it? How are we going to build that background knowledge? Pre-teaching concepts. So explicitly teach key terms and concepts before introducing new material. Use visuals and media. Employ those videos and infographics. They're so important for all students, but particularly important for a student who have reading disabilities or language disabilities. Hands-on experiences, they just bring the text and everything to life. Use real-life objects and activities to anchor abstract concepts. Discussions and questioning. So engage in guided discussions to activate prior knowledge and encourage students to ask and answer questions. And you may need to use sentence frames for students to ask other questions and answer questions. So those may need to be scaffolded as well. And then you want to connect the information to students' lives. Invite students to share personal experiences related to the topic. So really important skill. So let's look at an amazing teacher who's activating prior knowledge in an SDC classroom. So I don't have too much to say. You're going to be able to see the greatness.
Are you ready? Are you watching? Last week we did something really, really fun, didn't we? And I have a brand new topic generation collage in your topic generation books. So I'm going to hand you out your books and I want you to turn to the last page and look for that fun thing that we did last week. Lily, here's your collage. And Fabrizio, take a look at yours. Heaven, there's Heaven. Open to the last page. Open to the last page and see if you can find that fun thing that we did together. Me? Did you find it? There it is. Let's see. Let's turn to the last page. There it is. There it is. Good job. Did you find it?
Papa,
Did you find it? There it is. What did we do? What did we do last week? What experience did we have last week?
In San Francisco.
That's right, Lily. We went to the aquarium by the bay in San Francisco. I have a question to ask you about that. What did you think about the aquarium? How did you feel that day?
Happy.
Happy. Wanda said
I
she
think I'm
felt
going to pause
happy.
it here, just a little snip. So, she's retired now. She is an incredible teacher. And the things that you notice, things that I notice first and foremost are the visual supports. These students have binders. They did something last week. A lot of the students in the classroom may only be able to or have the opportunity to talk about things that are in their current environment and what's happening right here and right now. I love that she's created binders. We're going back to talk about it. We're going to do something else with it. We want to know opinions. We want to discuss. And I think she's going to do a writing activity with them. So a fantastic example of an STC teacher engaging in that prior knowledge activity. And then the next video, so before I play it, I'm going to use Esperanza Rising a little bit throughout these first three areas of reading comprehension. So we're using Esperanza Rising, and this is how a fifth grade teacher introduced the topic of Esperanza Rising. And we're only going to listen to like a minute of it.
This video includes background information about Esperanza's home and family. The setting of the story is in Aguascalientes, Mexico, in the 1930s. Aguascalientes is a state in the center of Mexico. Esperanza is a 12-year-old wealthy girl who lives on an hacienda called El Rancho de las Rosas. What is an hacienda, you ask? An hacienda is a large plot of land used for farming. Her father's name is
there. So kids love videos. They do seem to be more engaged when they're watching a video, especially if it's something new that they've never had an experience with before. So creating PowerPoints is a great idea, using visuals, lots of visuals. So if you go to the next slide, I have some strategies to support background knowledge. I talked about using videos in presentations, or you can just present a video on YouTube. Using other forms of or additional reading material like fiction or nonfiction, those hands-on experiences are so fun. So looking at, can we make, can we cook something that maybe Esperanza experienced in the book? Virtual, yeah, fantastic front loading for the story. Just love that. Virtual field trips are so fun. Like maybe a virtual field trip to a Mexican heritage dance or someone cooking, hands-on and sensory experiences, concept sorts, culturally relevant resources. Guest speakers are always so fun. I feel like students really pay attention when they have someone new coming in the class and sharing something, maybe someone who does work in the wine industry or growing something. Teach works in categories, compare and contrast, and embrace that multimedia. And then on the right, you see a KWL chart. It's a tool that students can use to organize their research when starting on a project. So it helps students to synthesize what they know, what they want to know, and what they have learned about a topic. So I have a teacher resource here. So on the left are a few ideas. Canva and Prezi are platforms that you can use to create presentations. You can add visual supports, and you can add all sorts of fun, engaging material. And then virtual field trips. You can just do a Google search for virtual field trips and you come up with a ton of sites. There's zoo field trips and there's like you can tour the Warner Brothers studio or you can look at the Georgia wetlands. So really nice options. And then we have Magic School. Magic School has a fantastic resource. So I'm going to go ahead and have you play the video and then we can chat a little bit.
Hi, it's Melissa Dandy Walker from the Department of Instructional Technology, and I am here to show you one of my favorite tools in Magic School AI. And so as you can tell, there are a lot of great tools. I have starred my favorites to pull them up to the top. So I have to keep scrolling. The one we're going to talk about today is Make It Relevant. So like all other tools, you can go up here and see an exemplar first before you put yours in. And also you go from pre-K all the way up to college level. I'm going to keep it at 9th grade. And let's put graphing. Yes, graphing the equation. Sorry, I can't type of a line. And let's say this year I have a group of kids in my classroom who love hip hop. And I'm going to say they live in Atlanta just to give some context for that hip hop that they love. Now let's see what we get. 3 creative ideas. The first one is hip hop. Hitmaker line graphs. Create a music-themed activity where students graph the popularity of different hip-hop songs on a line graph over time. You know, this would be great to have them do some research and have a pre-assignment where they find this information out themselves. Atlanta Skyline Slope Challenge. Showcase various iconic Atlanta skylines or landmarks in class. Challenge students
You
to
can pause it.
calculate.
So on the next slide, I do have an example. So I went in to make it relevant and no, all I did was, so the making relevant portion of Magic School is incredible because I took Esperanza Rising and maybe I could put that the kids are interested in Legos, something, and it relates it to their experiences or interests, and then kind of gives you information and activities that you can do to help with that, relating that information to their interests. So it's a fantastic tool. I also just put into Magic School, this slide has background knowledge, building background knowledge. So then if you click again, there's the Make It Relevant. So I said, these students are in 5th grade. I'm teaching Esperanza Rising, and then I could have described my students a little bit better here, and then I click generate, and then if you click the next slide, it gave me some ideas on what I could do, organize a cultural heritage day, create a visual representation like a poster or digital slideshow. I thought this was great, and then there are other ideas that they give you at the bottom, like, do you want to? Can you? So other avenues that you can take with this. So that is Magic School. And I think we're going to look at vocabulary. So make sure. Okay. So knowledge of words and word meaning. So there are 4 components of an effective vocabulary program. So wide or extensive independent reading to expand that word knowledge, instruction in specific words to enhance comprehension of texts containing those words, instruction in independent word learning strategies, and word consciousness and wordplay activities to motivate and enhance learning. Oh, I'm just gonna quick. 80+ tools in Magic School they're very beneficial, but it can be very overwhelming. Thank you, Amanda. So by reading lots. Reading volume influences differences in children's vocabulary. So rarity and variety of words in children's books is greater than that in adult conversation. At the right level of difficulty in sufficient amount. So I know that there's like the goal of like 30 minutes a night with sufficient motivation to pursue understanding. And then that's through multiple exposures and multiple examples in context. So the vocabulary needs to be spoken and written through explicit instruction. So constructing definitions and using a dictionary, analyzing word structure, exploring word relationships. In the old days, we used to have to write a word out and then we'd have to write the definition. And I don't know that it was very meaningful at times, but I think that there are tools out there that can be more motivating to use, and there's games like Kahoot and all sorts of fun things that you can use to support vocabulary. Okay, so let's look at Esperanza Rising again. This is the first paragraph in the Esperanza book. So what jumps out at you in terms of vocabulary? When I looked at it, so I'm going to have you just look at it for a second, and think, how would your students, general education students, do with this paragraph? And then think about, maybe there's a student who has speech and language difficulties, or ADD, ADHD. What kind of jumps out at you? If anyone wants to unmute. Got something in the chat. The figurative language, lots of adjectives. So the figurative language is, draped the arbors, right? Even the first line, our land is alive. Like, I don't even know, like, some students be like, I don't even know what that means. What are you talking about? But I agree, drape the arbors. So that could be very challenging. So how do we break that down? When we look at these strategies, we want to support vocabulary learning. There are so many different ways, and these are not new. Like graphic organizers, you all have them. So there's word zone families, word pictures, word banks using synonyms and antonyms. There's a word map on the left, and then the Freyer model is a way to take a word and draw a picture, the definition, similar words, and my word in a sentence. I have used the expressive, I'm going to have to look up the definition of EAT, but it's a multi-sensory tool. You typically would see this in a speech room, but you take the word, and so you have a rope with different colored balls, and you go through the different elements of the word. What category does it go into? What does it look like? What does it feel like? So all sorts of things, synonyms, antonyms. And the nice thing about it is that multi-sensory piece that students really benefit from. And it boosts oral and written expression. Okay. So those are some low tech. These are the tools that you can kind of look into. Text Project is a great resource for great teacher resources for free resources, including vocabulary. And they have word maps, word zones or families, and word pictures that you can read. So Broader Vision is a UK-based website that provides ideas, activities, and downloads, and a growing list of teacher resources, including a word bank creator to support vocabulary teaching. So you can put in the topic, or they have topics already there, and then it'll provide a list. And those lists can go into student vocabulary, like they can print it and they can put it into a little notebook, or you can be really creative if a student has like read and write. you can take that vocabulary and you can place it into the word prediction dictionary so that when the student is using word prediction, those words will come up quicker. Inclusive is a very cool site. It's brought to you by CAST, the Center for Applied Technology. It's a great resource they've created, which is a reading resource. So you can use this website and upload books, and students can access the readings through the website. But they also have lots of other little vocabulary supports for students. I would definitely look at it, especially because it is from CAST. So for those of you unfamiliar with a mind map, it's a diagram for representing tasks, words, concepts, or items linked to and arranged around a central concept or subject using a non-linear graphical layout that allows the user to build an intuitive framework around a central concept. So you can see under mindmapping.com, you see mind mapping in the center. And then I think that Mimi said, those look like neurons. Yes, those are kind of like branches. So not the traditional graphic organizer, but it's created as you're thinking through things. It can turn a long list of monotonous information into a colorful, memorable, and highly organized diagram that looks in line with your brain's natural way of doing things. So you can go into mindmapping.com and look that up. So those are some great general resources. And then we know that read and write is, at times, it can be a classroom support. So all students have access to read and write as an ed tech tool. But most of the time what we see is that a student would qualify, or not qualify, but under an assistive technology assessment, that they would require a multi-feature tool like read and write to access digital materials and to have text read aloud and to use I think I mentioned word prediction, but they also have this fantastic vocabulary feature if you want to play that.
This video demonstrates how to use the vocabulary tool in Read and Write for Google Chrome. The vocabulary feature allows you to create a vocab chart from individual words or terms. Just use the colored highlighters to highlight individual vocabulary words. Then click the vocabulary button. Choose which colors to include in your chart and click OK. This will automatically create a new doc in your Google Drive or OneDrive. Your new vocab chart includes dictionary definitions, images from the picture dictionary, and an extra column for notes. This doc can now easily be shared with students, edited, or used as a study guide. The vocab tool can be used in Google Docs, Word docs, websites, and more. To learn more about Read and Write for Google Chrome, visit texthelp.com.
Pretty cool. I love the visual dictionary in Read and Write for some students. So fantastic for student-specific vocabulary support. Okay, let's look at language structure. So understanding language structure helps readers make sense of what they see in text form. So we covered phonology, which includes phonemic awareness and phonics in session 1. So other components of language structure include morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, which we'll take a look at closer in a few minutes. So let's look at, morphology refers to the rules of word structure, and syntax to the rules of sentence structure. So together, these elements comprise grammar. So knowing that ed on the end of a verb means that something happened in the past, or that s or es on the end of a noun means more than one. So that's essential for comprehending what is read. Those little nuances of reading that word in either form the past tense or the plural, has an incredible impact on comprehension. Okay. So morphology refers to the rules of word structure, and syntax to the rules of sentence structure. So together these elements comprise grammar. Nope, I just read that, guys. So how is meaning impacted by sentence structure? So here are two sentences. Only she likes pizza. She only likes pizza. Very different meanings, right? The dog chased the cat. The cat was chased by the dog. Those are two sentences that mean the same thing. However, the complexity of the sentence is increased on the right side. Let's eat, Grandma, and let's eat, Grandma. Very, very different, right? So even though the order of the nouns has changed in this, like having a more complex sentence structure, the longer sentences, figurative language, and low frequency words increase the complexity of a text. To read increasingly complex texts successfully, students need to support navigating complex structures and word choices to understand how each contributes to the text meaning. So we kind of overlook this, right? We overlook what are they actually reading? The nuances of language. Knowledge of language structure helps readers track information within a sentence or across a text. So a skilled reader uses their knowledge of language structure to accurately summarize and make logical inferences. So without understanding how to refer to a noun used in a previous sentence, for instance, students quickly lose the ability to make meaning of challenging text. So this is semantics, which is the knowledge of word meanings and relationships. It includes associations, categorizations, synonyms and antonyms, multiple meanings, analogies.
Not available.
Janae. I think we can, there we go. Homophones and homonyms. So knowing that the word rock can mean a stone or back and forth movement or type of music helps to avoid confusion when encountered in text, right? So if we only know that a rock is like a stone, then that's going to be crucial to understanding the text. And then pragmatics refers to the social use of language. It requires application of background knowledge and experiences and can be influenced by such factors as a person's cultural background. So pragmatic language includes verbal and nonverbal communication and is critical for understanding a person's motive and intent. There's also the irony, sarcasm, and tone of voice. So, for example, interpreting, can you pass the salt as a request, not just a question? What does it mean if a character said something with an eye roll or hands on her hips? Those little nuances can be so important, like that first little paragraph we read from Esperanza Rising, right? So here's some strategies to support language structure. So for syntax and morphology, teaching those root words, prefixes, and suffixes, the parts of speech and the use of the word in sentences. Discuss how that word order changes the meaning, giving lots of different examples, maybe making it simple, making it complex, and then moving changing the meaning completely. Then semantics, semantic mapping, the eat, beads, this is all semantics. They're using it in different forms and categorizing and defining. Word games are also fun. And then tapping into that use of prior knowledge and using context clues. Which I think it can be a fun game, like little detectives. Like, what does this mean And then we have pragmatic. So punctuation conveys meaning and tone. Analyze language functions, informing, persuading, describing, and then partner group chats. And I love role playing. So that is, and then here are some tools. We know that text to speech could be really beneficial. So if we're not fluent readers yet, then using text to speech can be very important to understanding everything, but we may need to be more explicit in our teaching, even though we have our text to speech. So audiobooks, and then we have read and write, immersive reader and natural reader, highlighters and annotations. So like the vocabulary tool that we've just looked at for read and write, that has a great annotation feature. Digital or no tech, so using your highlighters on physical paper, sticky notes, voice notes, and then Cami is a great annotation tool. Simplify text, so read and write, and then we're going to look at ReadWrite has a Rewordify, and they also have a Diffit. We're going to look at both of those, and then we have our AI tools, text levelers, real-world connections, multiple explanations, and a text scaffolder. So the next slide is that same, so you remember the first paragraph in Esperanza Rising. Well, if a student is only reading at a first grade level and has difficulty with language structure, then you can use Diffit, and it's for teachers, to take that information, put it into a first grade reading level, and this is what you would get. So when you read through it, there are words that a first grade students could decode. They also do provide, Diffit is amazing, so they provide some pictures and some like a summary that a student can, if they need visual supports to support the comprehension, you can also do that. And then we have Simplify and Rewordify with Read and Write.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to use the Simplify and Rewordify tools in the Read and Write browser extension. These features are only available with the browser extension and do not appear in the desktop version of Read and Write. The Simplify tool is really useful for decluttering a web page and simplifies text as it removes all the adverts, pictures and links that distract you from reading the information. The Rewordify tool is great on a web page to simplify the readability of on-screen text without changing the meaning. The Simplify and Rewordify tools can be used on any web pages such as the college websites. It can't be used on Microsoft 365 though. On the Read and Write toolbar, the Simplify tool are the lines getting smaller with the arrow pointing downwards icon. And when you hover your mouse over, you can see the words Simplify Page appear. The Rewordify tool are the two boxes with the arrow pointing from the big to the little box icon, and when you hover your mouse over, you can see the word Rewordify appear. To use these tools or any of the tools on the browser extension, click on the icon and a small dot will appear, and the icon will change colour to show you are currently using that feature. To use the Simplify feature, go to the website you'd like to look at and press the Simplify tool. You will see a separate tab called Simplify appear, and after loading, it will have all the text from the website, excluding all the images, videos, adverts and links. This page offers more features, such as you can simplify the text even more if it's still a lot. You can turn on the Discover option, and certain words will be underlined, and when you click on these words, a description of the word will appear in a box under the word. You can change the text and background colour between black on white, white on black, yellow on blue, or blue on yellow, depending on your preference. The screen masking feature is still available on this page if you use this feature already. You can choose the font size and font type. So if you use a font like Open Dyslexic, you can change the text to this font. You can choose the line spacing from single, 1.5 line, or double. And this final feature is not fully released as it's being tested, but you can AI simplify the text, which scans the information in the Simplify tab and turns it into a summarized version, which can be useful for quickly understanding all the text from the website you've chosen. To use the Rewordify feature, go to the website you'd like to look at and press the Rewordify tool. This will scan the web page you're on and simplify the readability of certain words. The words changed will be in italic, and when you hover your cursor over them, you will see a question mark. If the word has been changed, the question mark will pop up with the original word, the new word. If the word is the original word but in italic, you can click on it and an alternative word and a description will appear. In the settings, under the Rewordify tab, you can choose the level of how reworded you would like the page to be. If you only want the page reworded a little, then choose minimum. If you want the page reworded a lot, choose maximum. Or stay with the default reworded level to increase or decrease as you use this feature. So that is the simplify and
Amazing, right? It's a pretty new feature from Read and Write, but wow, incredible. So it does what Diffit does, but it's there on that toolbar with all those other features. Okay, so after taking in all of this information and exploring new tools, what's standing out most for you right now? So in the chat, or you can unmute, you can turn on your video and you can unmute. Which of the tools we discussed could best support the readers in your classroom? Or what's standing out? I'm interested to hear. This is that awkward moment. Oh, here we go. Stephanie is collecting all these tools and excited to share them with teachers she supports. Also wondering if you will do this series again. I'd like to be able to recommend it to teachers. Well, we've got great news for you because Mimi hit record and this will be recorded and available to Google Read and Write has so many great tools that all learners could benefit from. From Amanda, that is our ed tech specialist. All students would benefit from. I agree. However, I know that the cost of giving everyone, there are districts, there are sites where everyone has access to Read and Write, but it's few and far between. So really knowing who to recommend it, like if you're a teacher and you think that potentially a student has a reading disability and they may benefit from Read and Write, you may want to bring it up to the IEP team. So I agree, could benefit all. Read and Write is individualized or with student control. Diffit is teacher controlled, correct. Diffit is something that a teacher would do. Read and Write is something, I mean, all teachers have access to a free subscription of Read and Write. So just know that. Now, a teacher could, and we would love it, if they were modeling how to use tools, they could use Read and Write if they have a free subscription. That normalizes Read and Write, but we ultimately do want to teach students, if they have Read and Write, how the tool can work for them. Because we know learning happens beyond the classroom if they are at home doing homework, writing essays. So we will also want to make sure that when the teachers are modeling, they're teaching their students how to use it. So And Amanda said, yes, if you buy multiple licenses, then you can potentially get a break, a bulk rate.
Yeah, I would recommend talking with your co-teachers, your staff, if you think you have multiple learners that would really benefit from this. Sometimes if you're buying licenses like Read and Write or Cami or something in bulk, sometimes you get a better discount than when you're buying just these individual licenses. Obviously, this varies depending on your district and your student need, but it could be something you might want to look into.
Typically, who takes charge in teaching a student to use the tool? So that really depends. If the student has an IEP, then the case manager, we would like for case managers to be able to know the tools, to be able to support the student with the implementation of the tool in the classroom. But we do know that there are times when an AT specialist would need to come in and support the team a little, but we are moving toward, we train everyone because we ultimately want the teacher, the case manager on site to be able to support the student with tools. So we're definitely moving away from that expert model to everyone can support assistive technology.
And we also really want to empower all of our, the educators, whether it's like the case managers or like, even like our, one-to-one aides or the staff in our classroom. We want to tell them that, hey, you guys have just as much power to get to know a tool, feel comfortable with it, and, share the knowledge with our students. We want to make sure that everyone feels really comfortable in being an asset to kind of building these skills for our students.
Jessica said the OTs are helping with teaching students, and that is, depending on why the student initially needed read and write. Sometimes it's due to writing difficulties, so they may be using the speech to text or the word prediction features. The OT is provides support with access. So a lot of the times you'll see an OT who supports assistive technology. Because unfortunately, not everyone has an educational technology specialist and not everyone has an assistive technology specialist. So, how are you going to educate yourselves? Taking trainings, getting the free license, getting in there and figuring out how you're going to support implementation, all very important. Thank you for the conversation.
That was great. Thank you, everybody. All right. Well, thank you, Tracy, for all that information. I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about verbal reasoning. So when we're talking about verbal reasoning, it's really involving metacognitive and metalinguistic skills as we think about what we are reading. And so it's a synthesis of the information gathered as we analyze all the different elements of the language structure and apply our background knowledge. So the better our oral language development, the stronger our verbal reasoning and critical thinking abilities are. So when we're thinking about verbal reasoning, it includes thinking beyond just the information that's presented, right? It's also about the implied meaning. We're trying to understand cause and effect. We're analyzing the information. We're comparing and contrasting all of this information. We're trying to figure out interpreting figurative language. What metaphor are they talking about? The idiom. We're trying to summarize. We're trying to separate what's relevant from irrelevant information. We're trying to form conclusions. And then we're also trying to understand the motives and the intention of characters, right? Trying to do some perspective taking. So lots of different types of skills are involved in verbal reasoning. So some of the strategies to support verbal reasoning includes exposure, lots and lots of exposure across a wide range of subjects and genres. The more we expose our readers to different types of texts and subjects and different genre, the stronger their verbal reasoning skills become. We also want to model metacognitive and metalinguistic processes during a whole group reading. We want to ask them, hey, what are your thoughts? And what connections are you making as you're reading? Tell me about the way that you're thinking. We want to touch base on that. We wanted to explore that with our students. We also really want to encourage active engagement in reading through asking them questions, summarizing, pointing out main events, and also talking about like the intent and implied meanings of what the author is trying to convey to us. We want to continue to build that background knowledge, right? The experiences they have. And the more we encourage students to write about the text, the more that increases the comprehension part. One of the very best ways to support verbal reasoning is connected to visuals. So think readers' theaters, right? As they're reading, we want to encourage them to be expressive, to just kind of read with intention and with a different variety of voices and actions. Graphic novels really supports reading as well. Sometimes when we, see kids with graphic novels, there may be this urge to take it away and give them like a chapter book instead. But graphic novels really have a place to kind of support verbal reasoning skills. Think about graphic organizer. Can we create a Venn diagram for comparing, contrasting ideas in a book? What about flowcharts for figuring out like a problem in books, or even timeline for sequencing something that an author has laid out for us? Think about how we can use AI, specifically AI to generate image, right? There's so many tools out there that maybe a kid has never seen what an arbor looked like when we're talking about Esperanza rising, right? Can we create that image for them? There's lots of tools out there that are free. Adobe Firefly is a free version for educators. Microsoft Copilot, their designer one is also free. And there's also Crayon. All of these AI generators are free and accessible to everybody. We've linked them on the home base document, so you might want to play around with it next time you're introducing a new topic and we want to have some of those background knowledge. Let's create an image for our kiddos to have an idea in their minds. There's an image right here that you see that was made by Storyboard That. And Storyboard That is a digital tool that lets us create comic style storyboards using customizable characters, scenes, and text. It really supports verbal reasoning by kind of helping a learner visually organize their thoughts, right? And express their ideas through story sequencing. And when we combine image and dialogue, students are practicing explaining relationships that they're learning about, the cause and effect and the kind of logical flow of a story, which are all really key elements of verbal reasoning. Oh, I love how Amanda's kind of said, check one disclaimer that's really important. Kind of check your district's AI policy before using AI tools, and you should be able to get this information from your IT department. And that's really going to vary by each district, right? So we want to touch base with them and make sure that's okay for us to use, for our students to use. Really great point, Amanda. Now, I know we've mentioned Cami a lot throughout this 3 series. It's a really great tool. It was kind of first known as a annotation tools, right? An online application that lets a user annotate and mark up digital documents, particularly PDFs. But it has a lot of different features as it's gotten better and better. And it really makes kind of static resources really interactive for our students by kind of enabling features like highlighting, drawing, adding text and comments, using tools like text-to-speech and built-in dictionaries for accessibilities. And there are lots of other great features. So we encourage you to kind of just take it, own it, explore it, just play around with it for yourself and see what you can do. And one of the things that it also had a most recent update was it includes a graphic organizer now. And so we're going to watch a really short video on how to use that in Cami to create graphic organizers.
Cami fans rejoice! There has been a huge update. When you go to Add Media and Stickers, the first time you click on it, you'll see there's a yellow dot, which always means click on it and see what's new. Because look, they have graphic organizers. So I click the bubble map and boom, click to drop it. I don't have to make the little circles and things. It's already made for me. So if you haven't been using graphic organizers in Cami, there's no better time to start than now.
These are great. I don't think she's affiliated with Cami, but man, what a great selling point. There are lots of different ways to make graphic organizer, and sometimes it's nice to know that one specific tool has lots of different options. You can still go and make it in Word or Canva, but it sure is nice if in your busy schedule just to kind of click one button, right? And then now you have a graphic organizer that you can, make an example of and show our students, or print it out and just have them handwrite it. So lots of options available. Okay. So that was a little bit about verbal reasoning. Oh, Tracy mentioned, for a student who requires access for digital materials, a digital graphic organizer is so important. So true, right? Give them different ways to access the material, not just through kind of a worksheet. So that was about verbal reasoning. We're going to spend the next few slides talking about literacy knowledge. And it's the final area of comprehension, right? It's all about understanding how print and written language convey meaning. It includes 5 components. The first one is print awareness, right? Knowing how to handle a book and that we read from left to right, top to bottom. We've talked about phonological awareness kind of in session 1, and that's recognizing how spoken sounds connect to written letters and can form new words. The next one is text structure and features, identifying parts of a text, like that's the title, that's the chapter, and that's the glossary. Have some genre awareness, understanding different types of writing, like fiction versus nonfiction, and how do you approach each one? The last one is print concepts in context. So realizing that printed words carry meanings and helps us gather information. So when we're thinking about building literacy knowledge, we're going to talk a little bit about development. Literacy knowledge really begins the moment a child explores a book, right? They're learning how it works and discovering that stories live in print from the time that mom and dad or a caregiver opens a book and picks it up and reads it for them, okay? So through these everyday experience, like reading signs or books with adults, children are learning that about how print functions and why it matters. And then as they progress, right, in the early grades, fiction is going to look like fairy tales, fables, and some simple stories, while nonfiction is going to look like introducing basic informational texts to build kind of that background knowledge. And by the time they get into upper elementary school, they're going to explore a little bit more about what's poetries and plays and what is this biographies, and begin to do some simple research text. And it's our hope that by middle and high school, the focus shifts to more informational texts, right? We're learning about science, history, and social studies, and we're helping students read for evidence. We're helping them analyze the source and then connecting these ideas around the subjects. We have a list of some of the strategies to support literacy knowledge that you can come back to as reference, but I bet it's many of the strategies that we use in education already, right? Some of the key ones we want to highlight include modeling text features, like explicitly pointing out to students, this is a glossary, this is a table of content. These are the function of in a book and while reading it in class, not just reading the content of the book, right? Helping them navigate all of that. We also want to facilitate discussion about the way that texts are organized or the way that they're connected. We want to encourage, and this is a really big one, student-to-student conversation. Get them talking to each other about, hey, what are you reading? What do you make of that? I have no idea. Do you have an idea? Even that is really important, right? That shared connection of like, my gosh, we have no idea what the teacher's talking about it, but we can learn together because you're not the only one that doesn't understand this. And then the more we write and draw about reading, the more we're building the skills as well. Many of the digital tools to support literacy knowledge are the same that we've talked about for all 3 sessions. They support all the different areas of reading as well. Tools like interactive books, reading apps, YouTube read alouds, audiobooks, text-to-speech, speech-to-text like Read and Write and Kami. If you begin to see a lot of these tools that we talked about can support reading at all the different areas. One of the tools that we do want to make sure you're aware of is called Bookshare. Bookshare is a really great resource. It's a free service for students with print disabilities. So it gives them access to a large library of textbook and literature with the option to also request missing titles. And it offers built-in text-to-speech with word and sentence highlighting. And it allows the student to kind of read and listen simultaneously. And Bookshare works across most devices, and it's a standard source for accessible copyrighted textbooks. And it's really important that a designated team member manages kind of the book requests and assignments, especially in middle and high school, as they get lots and lots of requests for the different types of books that they have to manage, especially also when they change classes frequently between their school programming. And we're going to watch a quick video of how to access Bookshare.
We're going to look quickly at Bookshare and Bookshare Web Reader. Right now I'm on bookshare.org, logged in as a student and looking at a list of recent books. So Ninja Kids is at the top. I'm going to click the Read Now button. This opens in the Bookshare Reader, and now I have controls down at the bottom where I can play the book.
My name is Nelson. Until recently,
I can play and pause, and then there's settings that can be changed. So we have audio, text, page, and color settings. And I wanted to show in the audio, you can choose your Chromebook voices. And if you've loaded the natural voices in the Google Chrome settings, those are accessible here also. So right now we have this set to, I'm going to put it at Google US English for natural. So that will sound like,
until recently, I was just a normal kid.
Okay, so the other thing when a student is reading in this web reader is that there are keyboard commands. So you can get a list of those on the Bookshare site, but we can hit play to play the text to speech with Alt-R. So basically it's Alt-Read.
Until recently, I was just a normal kid, maybe even a nerdy kid, and I was okay with that.
Now to switch that off, it's Alt-Shift-R. So Alt-R reads, Alt-Shift-R stops. And then there's other commands that the students can learn to navigate and read their books.
You know, she's using some controls that are, you know, she's probably used them a few times, so she knows them. But these are things to keep in mind when we're trying to teach our kids how to navigate a new skill, right? Like navigating Bookshare. We want to make sure that we're building those skills slowly, scaffold it first. We don't want to say, here's a new tool, use it, and then you can do Control R, you can do all that. That's a little bit too much, right? And even for us as adults, we want to scaffold the way that we're presenting the information. But Bookshare is such a great way to give access to our kiddos who maybe are having struggling reading at a grade level, at their grade level, right? We still want them to get the information from the book, but let's lessen the cognitive load of kind of decoding and working on our fluency. Let them have access to just kind of the word are still printed there. We're still, you know, practicing reading, but let them listen maybe to the story so that they're getting the information that they need. It's a really great tool to know about as well. All right, so that was kind of the end of the kind of a brief short 2 section. And I know that we've went over a lot of content, a lot of tools. And so now that we've explored all the strands of the Scarborough's reading rope, we want to kind of ask you what strand resonate mostly with your work or deepen your understanding or sparked your curiosity. And instead of going to a chat or unmute, we're going to do a quick breakout room. And so we want you guys to spend just a few minutes talking about amongst yourself about what you are thinking about the rope so far, and which of these tools or strategies stood out for you, or how do you think they could support you, your students in your classroom. So I'm going to go open a breakout room right now. Oh, Amanda says she loves Bookshare. Now that thank you. She put the prompt in there for us. Great. And since we have a small group, I will just do one breakout room and you guys kind of go in there and just talk amongst yourself for we'll come back in about 3 minutes, all right? Okay, they should be ready to go. And I'm going to stop recording and I will Starting in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that was enough time to kind of chat. Does anybody want to share kind of what you guys talked about in the group?
I would share, but I was sworn to secrecy. Just
Rudy.
kidding. We kind of talked about read and write, Cami, Magic School AI, and then some of the kind of tools, I guess, that we think might be helpful.
Some of those big hitter tools that have lots of functionality to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely for sure.
Magic School, I know Mimi can talk about this too, but Magic School is one AI website. There are multiple, and I have like a comparison chart of a few different AIs. Brisk is also a great tool, AI tool. So anyway, we are not selling, we're not trying to sell licenses to Write or Cami, or we're not, pushing Magic School. It's just one tool that we use to give examples.
Yeah.
One thing I would also suggest is now that AI is so popular, you might already have AI tools embedded in your curriculum or your supplemental materials that have been bought. So, for example, iExcel, if anyone uses iExcel, they have their AI tool Spark Studio. If you use Khan Academy, they have their AI tool Conmingo. If you use Microsoft, it has Copilot, right? So there's all these different already purchased curriculum and supplemental materials that people are using that AI has already built in. So you might want to look into that. Again, I want to emphasize double checking your district's AI policy and your IT team. That is the first step before we start to use all these tools, because we want to make sure that we are keeping student data safe while also making our lives easier using AI. So just make sure you double check that first before you use these tools.
It's a great reminder, Amanda. Right. Tracy is going to bring us home and kind of put it all together for us.
So here's the reading rope again. And when we look at, so there's a green oval around where all of the strands come together and cross and are intertwined with each other. So the word recognition and the language comprehension. And this is where we have our prosody and we have comprehension. And it's an incredible, learning how to read is the most incredible process to me, because you look at all of these functions of reading, and when you think of a rope and how strong it is, toward the end, you've got skilled reading. So fluent execution and coordination of word recognition and language comprehension. So working on all those together creates that.
It's so true. So many different components, right? And as we're teaching these little ones to read, we want to make sure each of these strands are really strength so that they become these skilled readers. They progress through each of the grades.
It makes you think how difficult teaching is, right? So all of these skills and how much time it takes to front load information and teach vocabulary, and then we're still working on decoding. And so it takes a lot of time, but it's all very important.
Worth it, yeah. Right. So as we kind of wrapped up this 3-part series on empowering readers, and remembering that the science of reading really gives us kind of the why, right? And the tools and strategies that we've talked about gives us the how. And when we think about it together, they really equip us to kind of help every student become a confident, capable reader. And that's kind of what we hope was the takeaway from this series. And kind of Stephanie mentioned that this is a resource she wants to share with your teachers. Please do so. All of our 3-part series will be recorded. Teachers can go at self-pace. Maybe this week we want to learn about kind of the beginning reading and learn about more phonics and phonemic awareness. And then as they progress, they want to learn more about the complexity of the reading rope. It's a great resource for them to just kind of dive into at their own pace. Before we go, let's take a moment to reflect. What's kind of one step you'd like to empower readers in your setting? Something you can start doing tomorrow. You guys already had that great discussion in the group, but we'll keep it a secret. But I'm going to give you a minute to kind of think about what you want to do tomorrow. And it could be like Stephanie said, sharing the knowledge with your teachers. And please type your response in the chat, but don't press enter yet, okay? And then when I count down and say enter, that's when we will submit our response and do a waterfall chat. So take a minute to think about what you are going to do for tomorrow. You guys want to give me a quick thumbs up or a little audio to let me know we're ready to go? Okay, see one thumbs up. Love it. Just got thumbs up. All right. 3, 2, 1, enter. I love it. Oh, great. So kind of Stephanie shared, a one pager for her K to share with the teachers. Yeah. Graphic organizer from Amanda. Rudy goes one step. I'm going to include Cami in the AT consideration and review graphic organizer. I love it. The one step approach. Magic AI deep dive. So kind of do some exploration, do some change of practice. Please share your one. Yeah. And again, Stephanie, if you end up creating one and it's a great resource, send it our way and we might include it in the resources to share with others. And many of you guys are familiar with our toolkits. Open Access has a variety one. We have a UDL one that focuses on UDL, an AT one that focuses on assistive technology, and an AAC one that focuses on alternative and augmentative communication. They're all on our Open Access website, so feel free to kind of go and play with those. It has a lot of the digital tools that we've mentioned. So it's a great resource to share with those who may need it. And before you take off today, we'd love for just a quick moment to share your feedback for our end of training survey. We really appreciate the time you take in providing our feedback, and we do read through every single one of them and try to incorporate into our next sessions or training. So if you'll take a minute to just kind of scan the QR code or click on the URL, we would really appreciate it and give you kind of a minute to do that. Thank you. Amanda also dropped it in the chat. When Jessica just shared another AI option, she dropped in the link, and I will include these shared resources in our home-based document as well. All right, thank you so much for taking the time to do the feedback survey. We're on a bunch of different social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. So please follow us. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for sticking through with that 3 series. We hope that you found this information helpful. And if you know people who could benefit from it, please direct them to our open access website to kind of access the training. And we'll have the last session posted up in a couple of days. Thank you, everybody.